Hey guys, my name is Iasmina and welcome back to my channel. So since it's almost the end of the year, I don't know how many of you have reading goals, either on Goodreads or otherwise. I definitely have on Goodreads, and sometimes I keep up with my reading goal and sometimes I don't. So here's a quick shot of what my current reading goal on Goodreads looks like. So as you can see, I have some catching up to do. And if you're in my situation, here are a recommendation of quick reads that you can read really quickly and hopefully meet your end of the year reading goal. There's a lot of books that I want to show you, so let's go through them quickly. So the first category of books I want to share with you guys are novellas. Novellas are short novels, usually around 30,000 to 50,000 words, and that makes them perfect for a quick read. It usually takes a couple of hours, maybe a day, and that's one more book added to your reading goal. So the first book I'm going to recommend to you guys is actually, well, it's a series of novellas, and I've talked about this many times on my channel and I'll keep talking about them because they are great. The first book is Every Heart a Doorway, and then I have the continuation of the series here, and there's one more that came out and I haven't actually read that yet, but it's a series of novellas, so technically, you know, you could read all of the series and then you'll read 4 books or 5 if you read the last one as well. But this series is a fantasy novella series about what happens when the kids who went through the magical door into the magical universe or through the magical wardrobe, what happens when they come back to the real world. I'm not gonna say any more than that. If that catches your attention, go pick them up. I'll link everything that I talk about in this video down in the description to make it easier for you guys, but yeah, I'll just go to the next one. The next one I'm gonna talk about is also kind of a part of a series, but kind of not. This is The Slow Regard of Silent Things by Patrick Rothfuss. And this technically is a part of The Name of the Wind, the Kingkiller Chronicles book series, but it's kind of just a companion novella following one of the characters from that series. So obviously it makes a lot more sense if you've read that series to read this, but I also think it can be a perfectly good standalone novella, and think of it more as a fairy tale, I would say. So this novella follows Ari, who is a very, very odd, beautiful character in the Name of the Wind series, or the Kingkiller Chronicles series. She made a little home in what is called the Underthing, which is just I guess a series of canals or the underground below the university where the Name of the Wind takes place. And she lives a very interesting little life, and she collects a lot of items and she talks to these items and she has names for everything, and yeah, she lives in kind of her own little fantastical world, and that's all I'll say about this. Next, I'm gonna recommend some novellas from one of my favorite fantasy authors, who is Brandon Sanderson, and the first one is The Emperor's Soul. This won the Hugo Award in a certain year, which means it is very, very good. This is one of my favorite books of all time and my favorite novellas of all time, and obviously Brandon Sanderson is great. This follows the character named Shai, who is imprisoned and has 100 days to create a new soul for the Emperor. I read this really quickly, obviously it is very short, but it is awesome and I would highly, highly recommend this one. The next Brandon Sanderson novella series I want to recommend is called Legion, and I'll put a picture up here because I don't own these physically, I read them on Kindle. This is more of a science fiction detective kind of story, following this detective who has a very, very special ability which helps in his detective endeavors, and that is that he can conjure up people. So if, for example, for his investigation he needs a forensic doctor or a chemist or anything, he can just conjure up a person that has that skill set, and then he can talk to them, he can interact with them. However, these people are not actually real, it's all in his head, and that makes him a very, very interesting character. And yeah, he solves crimes with this skill set, so think of it as a weird Sherlock Holmes with special abilities. Next is a science fiction novella series as well. I have the first one right here, and this is called Binti by Nnedi Okorafor. And this is a science fiction story about a girl on a spaceship who is on her way to go to university on a different planet, and things happen on the spaceship. I don't want to say too much because it is so incredibly short. Like, this is, I think, one of the shortest novellas I have. So you read it really, really quickly and it's very, very good. I haven't read the rest of the series, but the rest of the series is already out, so you can definitely continue on if you like this first one, but I definitely did, so I do plan on continuing on eventually. Another SFF novella is All Systems Red, and this is a really funny novella. Actually, it's about this android who is pretty much human. She thinks of herself as a human and she makes jokes, she makes puns, she has favorite Netflix shows that she watches. So she is practically a person. However, the people who employ her as, you know, her android just see her as an android, as a robot. It's a really funny series, and it also asks a very important philosophical question of what it really means to be a person. The next book is called Bodies of Water by V.H. Leslie, and this is more of a, I wouldn't call it horror necessarily, but it's definitely creepy. So this takes place in two timelines, one in the 1800s, I think, and it follows the two timelines of this building that used to be a facility for disturbed women, a water treatment facility. So women who had different mental issues usually would come to this facility, and they would undertake all these water treatments to make them better. But in the present day, this facility is now an apartment complex, and the woman who lives there starts experiencing some paranormal things that obviously link back to the past of this building. The next category I want to recommend is graphic novels and comics. Those are really easy to read. You could usually read them in one sitting, so I think they make great, you know, end of the year reads, and I just have a few here that I want to show you guys. But the first one is Paper Girls by Brian K. Vaughan and Cliff Chang, and this is kind of a Stranger Things-esque series about this group of girls who distribute newspapers on their bicycles in the 80s, and then aliens happen. This is Giant Days by John Allison and Lisa Treeman, and this follows a group of freshmen in university and their sort of day-to-day activities, and it's a very diverse cast, it's very funny, it's very quirky. Really recommend. The next is Lumberjanes by Louise Stevenson, and this follows a group of women in a camp. What do you call these? A scouts sort of camp? Somewhere deep into the forest, and then again, strange things start happening. And then another series I would recommend is the Saga graphic novel series by Brian K. Vaughan again, who's the same person who wrote Paper Girls, and this is a science fiction fantasy series that is very funny. Again, aliens, a lot of weird things. It's a bit graphic as well, but I read the first 3 volumes of it and I thought it was very good. I should continue on at some point. The next category of books is books that are just very short. I think that's just what I would call it. The first one is The Giver by Lewis Lowry. This comes in at about 170 pages. It's very small, very quick to read, and this is one of the first dystopian books, I think, that inspired, you know, classics like The Hunger Games and things like that. And this book sort of takes place in a dystopian world where life is perfect because someone, the giver, took all of life's pain away, and he holds all of the pain and the memories of life. And then the main character of this book, when he turns 12, he goes to meet the giver and find out about what his world means, I think. I've read this a while ago, so I can't really remember the details. Speaking of classics, I have another one here. This is A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. This is sort of a novel, right? But it's just a very, very short novel. And I think this would also make a perfect read around Christmas. I read it last year around Christmas, and I thought it was just a great little sit-down read. But I think all of you know what A Christmas Carol is about, so I'm not gonna go into it much, but you know, something like this would make a great quick read. And then the last one in this category is The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. This is also a pretty short book. It's also under 200 pages, and it's really fast to read. It's so funny. If you've never read the series or watched the movies, I highly, highly recommend it. It's a science fiction story about this British guy who goes into space, and it's, I don't want to say too much because you really have to experience this book to understand that. Some of the jokes may go over your head if you're not really accustomed to British humor, I guess British culture in some ways, but it is really funny. I would highly recommend. And the last category of quick reads are books that aren't necessarily short, but they're very easy and quick to read. So most of these I've read in one sitting, so like in one day. So I think they would make a great addition to this list. So the first one is And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. This is a mystery thriller novel that I'm sure you've all heard about. It's very famous. It's about these 10 people who are summoned to a remote island off the coast of England, to this huge mansion, and no one really knows why they're there, but one by one they start dying in mysterious ways and they don't know what's up. Then another fantasy science fiction classic is, well, anything in the Discworld series by Terry Pratchett. This specifically is called Mort, and again, it's a very short book. This is 290 pages, but it's very quick to read. Again, it's very funny, very quirky. It's just a very interesting sense of humor. Again, that British humor that I talked about with Hitchhiker's Guide, but I haven't read any more from this series apart from this one, but I really liked it, so I'm definitely going to continue on myself. So yeah, I would just recommend, if you see any of the Discworld books, pick them up. You don't always have to read them in order. Some go together and some do not, but this one I think is the first in its particular sub-series, so you can definitely try this one first. And then I have 3 YA contemporary novels that are very quick to read and that I've read all of these in one sitting. This is Dash and Lily's Book of Dares by David Levitan and Rachel Cohen. This would also make a great winter read around Christmas time, because this is about 2 teenagers who give each other, well, a list of dares, and this happens in New York during Christmas time, and they leave like a scavenger hunt for each other to follow, and things happen. The next one is The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky, and this is told in a diary form, so it also, I think, is very quick and easy to read. This is about, well, a wallflower, a teenager in high school who befriends some people that are a bit older than him, and you know, well, he's a bit of a wallflower, he's a bit shy, he doesn't really have a lot of friends, but through these new people, he finds a new side of himself. I think this is one of the YA contemporary classics that I would highly recommend. And the last one is one that I've read quite recently, and that is Queens of Geek by Jen Wilde. Love this cover. This is about 3 friends who go to a convention in America, and it's kind of like a Comic-Con convention, and one of them is a YouTuber, so she also goes there to meet fans and have a meet and greet. And this also deals with a lot of serious topics like anxiety and panic attacks, and it's also an LGBTQ story, and it's just wonderful and very easy to read and quick to read, so highly recommend. And the last book that I want to recommend is one I also own on Kindle, and that is The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman. And this is about a little boy who befriends some ghosts in his local cemetery. That's about all I'll say. So yeah, that was all the books that I wanted to share with you guys today for the quick reads list. I hope you pick some of these up, and I hope you crush your end of the year reading goals. As I said, do let me know if you do plan on picking any of them up. Otherwise, let me know what was your reading goal for this year and how far into it are you? Are you behind? Are you past it? Are you on track? Do you plan on even finishing your reading goal? You know, it's just something that you set for yourself. No one is forcing you to read however many books. You know, it's only yourself. So if you can tell yourself, I'm fine with this amount of books, then I think it's fine. I think it's fine not to meet your reading goal, you know. Don't pressure yourself too much, guys. But anyway, that was it for me today, guys. Hope you have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Why did I whisper? That was weird. I'm sorry.